Alright, hello everyone. I'm here at Skyscraper Games again, and I am at the skyscrapergames.com website and in the editor. This is Quick Start Lesson 2. If you didn't do Quick Start Lesson 1, you can either go back and do it or at least pull up the Quick Start Lesson 1 file and put it in the code editor so that you have this line here like I do. See here, display.putPixel. That's what we talked about doing in Quick Start Lesson 1. So when I run that, I get my blue dot right in the middle of the skyscraper, and that's as far as we went. For this lesson, we're going to talk about variables, and we're going to add some variables. By the end, it's not going to look much different than what we already have, but in the future Quick Start lessons, this will start to be helpful. So, a couple things about variables. A variable is just a named value, and we use it when we don't know in advance what the values are going to be in the program, or when we want the values to change a lot in the program, so we don't have to do what we call hard coding, which is what we've done here, and type in values over and over. So we have a section up here called engine variables. Variables also have something called scope, which we don't need to worry too much about, other than to know that when you declare a variable, the place where you declare it is important because it controls where you can use it in the program, whether you can only use it in a specific function or whether you can use it in the whole program. So these engine variables are ones we can use throughout the whole program, and those are the ones we want. First, I'm going to change this variable value. So the variable title right now has a value of drawing tutorial, and I'm going to change that to quick start. You can change it to any value you want. Just make sure that you don't mind if your teacher sees it and that it's appropriate. So whatever value you want, but this title is a variable and it contains text, and the text right now is called quick start. Now what I want to add is some variables that I can use from my putPixel function. So I'm going to just make some pretty simple variables. First one I'm going to call x, and I can also give it a value. So I'm going to say x equals 9, y, which equals 11, and then let me scroll down a little bit. We'll do red, which will equal 0, green will also equal 0, and then blue, I want to make sure I spell it correctly. Doesn't matter what you call it or how you spell it when you're declaring it, but once you've declared it, then spelling becomes important. So that blue I want to be 255. I also want to show you real quickly, we can add a comment. Anything with this pound sign or hashtag is a comment. The interpreter ignores that when it runs your code, but it's useful for you as a programmer and for anybody else who comes in and reads your code to see what you're doing. So I'm going to add a comment that says, these are the variables for my player pixel. Alright, so that way I know later on when I come back to this why I added those variables. Then down here for my function, I'm just going to replace it. But I can't just say x down here. I have to do a self period x. And that just tells the program when it runs to look up here under the engine variables for that x variable. Otherwise I'll get an error about the variable not being defined. So self.x, self.y, self.red, self.green, and finally self.blue. Now, if I run this code, you see there's my blue pixel right in the middle of the skyscraper. It looks almost exactly the same, but in the next lesson, Quick Start 3, we'll see how we can use these variables to start moving this pixel around. So we'll start adding some control features. Alright, so you can go on to Quick Start Lesson 3 whenever you're ready.